Hey, what's going on? Joel Erway here, and welcome to another very special episode of Sold with Webinars. It's been a while since I have hopped off my soapbox and have brought on a special guest to do a guest interview, but today I've got a very special guest on a very, very hot topic for anybody who's running marketing, paid ads, and especially for webinars. Anybody who's running paid ads for webinars, you are going to want to pay attention to our special guest today, because I'm going into basically a second part of YouTube advertising. Now, a couple episodes back, I had, I say a couple episodes back, this is probably 3 or 4 months ago now, I had Justin Brook on. He gave us kind of a crash course on YouTube ads. And today I've got Aleric Heck from Ad Outreach, who is going to be diving even deeper into YouTube ads specifically for webinars. Now, if you are listening right now, I was talking to Aleric before we jumped on the podcast. I said, I firmly believe that YouTube will really always be a blue ocean as compared to its nemesis, Facebook ads, because there is such a, I don't want to say such a much higher barrier to entry, but like I'm just a walking case study testimonial of me trying to get onto YouTube and running a couple campaigns and shutting it down and running a couple campaigns and shutting it down. But the thing is, like, I know there is so much opportunity with YouTube, and I want you to pay attention to this, because these conversations that I'm having with these experts that are coming on, like, this is where I'm learning it from and taking the knowledge and implementing it myself, because I will crack the YouTube code and my traffic will be much better standing on multiple legs than just the single pedestal. So without further ado, Aleric, man, welcome to the show. Excited to have you here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on, Joel. I'm very excited to dive into this.
Aleric and I go back. We go way back, way back in internet years. So we were part of the similar coaching program back in the day. I get targeted with his ads. I've seen his 3D targeting process that he'll be talking about today. But Aleric, for those who aren't familiar with you and Ad Outreach, give us a quick background as to what you guys do.
Yeah, absolutely. So, our main area of expertise is going to be YouTube ads for webinars, for high ticket businesses, right? So coaches, consultants, course creators, a lot of people who are going to be listening to this podcast, obviously, Sold with Webinars, right? That's our main area of expertise, is helping businesses with YouTube ads get consistent leads and sales. I'm sure you guys have seen, on Facebook, right? The costs are going up and up. And even when you do get campaigns that are working really well, they're a lot harder to scale because of all that competition, right? The red ocean that Joel was just talking about on Facebook. Again, Facebook works, but what we want to do is say, hey, not only can you diversify your lead flow to another platform, which is YouTube, but you can actually get even higher quality leads coming through because they've seen you on video. They're excited to learn from you. They're in that learner's mindset. That's what we're going to be covering today, is the YouTube ads side of webinars and high ticket sales.
That's always been the thing that stuck out to me. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like, Joel, you're an idiot, because we're all marketers. Like, marketers understand this. Like, if you can get the right audience that is in the right, you said it before, right learner's mindset, like that's the golden goose. Like, that's the goose that laid the golden egg. Like, you want those people who are in consumption mode. If you're pitching a webinar, we do lots of mini webinars too. Mini webinars are long form webinars, right? They're in the learner's mindset, and it's like, that's what you want. Versus Facebook, it's interruptive advertising, and it still works. Like, everybody and their brother is marketing on Facebook because they know it works. But take the time, learn how to create YouTube ads, learn the YouTube platform, because that's where your audience is really hanging out. So where do we start? What's kind of like this, like, where are we going to enter into the spider web of YouTube ads?
Absolutely. So there's a few things that I'm excited to talk about, especially on this podcast. We can really dive deep into, my favorite area, right, is working with, higher ticket businesses and courses, kind of in the webinar space. There's two main things that go into YouTube ads that are really going to convert and provide those high ticket sales. And the first is in the ad itself. And what I want to do is I want to break down some of the biggest misconceptions, some of the things people get wrong, what I recommend, especially for, what I would say is expert businesses, for your ad on YouTube that's going to make sure that you have an impact, you get more leads, more sales. And then on the other side, with the targeting, we've developed something, and Joel alluded to this earlier, right? It's our 3D YouTube ad strategy that we found is literally the secret, the key behind high ticket YouTube sales, because it essentially creates a triangle where you can pinpoint exactly who you want to reach: people who are willing to invest in high ticket or courses, right? People who are actively looking for what you have right now, which is intent. So they're in the market, they're in the learner's mindset. And you can also base it on who they are as a person and a business owner. So when you check all three of those boxes, you can pinpoint the perfect person. We're going to talk about both of those things, and I'm sure also dive a little bit deeper as well. But if you want, Joel, I could talk a little bit first about the video, and then we get a little bit more into the targeting.
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, I think it's going to be very sexy to talk about creative and figure out, okay, cool.
Yeah.
What are the elements that I need to put in place to get, and one of the other things that, sorry, I don't mean to kind of go all over the place. I just want to make sure I say it up front. One of the things that I would love to learn, because I'm going to basically, whether you like it or not, Aleric, I'm going to treat this as a consulting call, and I'm going to ask you questions that I've been lingering over. But I would love to know, like, what are my critical metrics for YouTube that is going to tell me, hey, you're on the right track for a winning ad, like watch rate, click-through rate, that stuff. We don't have to talk about it right now. I just want to make sure that's one of the points that we do cover. So, but I agree. Let's start with ad copy ad creative.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can get into that. I'm excited, and just, throw the questions at me. I'm excited. I mean, I could talk about YouTube all day, and that's basically what I do. So, that's what I love to do. And so starting off though, I think a lot of people, because we're going to talk about some really, sexy targeting and kind of options like that, but a lot of people overlook the video and the creative. And it's actually kind of interesting because people tend to swing one direction or the other. So one way they overlook it, they just do something really quick. And, and I'll talk about some of the misconceptions and some of the big mistakes people make in a second. They just throw something together too fast without really thinking about it. And then some people really, they don't even start with YouTube because they think you need to hire a big production studio. You need all this equipment. You need to hire a videographer. You don't need to do any of that, right? You can take, your iPhone and a tool. It's called a gimbal. You're probably familiar with this, Joel, right? It stabilizes your phone and it makes the video content look a little bit, higher quality, right? Instead of shaking around, it stabilizes it. You attach just a little microphone to your phone. There's some that can even go in the microphone jack. And you basically set that up. And that's going to be a simple way that you can record a natural video, because we found in expert-based businesses, right, where you're selling a course, coaching, consulting, you're basically selling your own expertise and knowledge. Natural is going to work best. So having you be on camera, whether it's somebody else holding the camera or even you filming the camera yourself, right, so just holding it in front of you, you're going to be able to resonate and connect with people. But one of the big mistakes that people make is they make a really short ad. They do 30 seconds or 60 seconds. And there's even people in the marketplace right now who are kind of talking about that, but that's not the best for an expert-based business. We've actually cracked the code, and it has three components. It has a hook, so you capture people's attention. And what you want to do is you want to pull the right person in while pushing the wrong person away. Because on YouTube, you only pay if somebody watches 30 seconds of your ad. You probably heard that from the last person who kind of talked on here. And so you want to use that to your advantage. That means not only do you want to pull the right person in, but if you get the wrong person to skip, the person that's not going to benefit from what you have, then you don't have to pay for them. You only pay for the people that will be genuinely interested. They're actually looking for what you have to offer. So pulling the right person in, pushing the wrong person away, that's the hook. Then educate, right? This is where a lot of people leave out, because most people just hook people, right? So they have some kind of nice hook that captures attention, but then they just say, okay, go sign up for my webinar. But that's not going to work as well, because in our marketplace, and again, YouTube is more of a blue ocean, obviously, than Facebook, but people are trying to hook people all the time, right? You need to add some substance. You want to actually provide some value. So think about what people are doing. Let's say they're looking up how to grow my business, how to get more leads, how to lose weight, right? If you have a program that teaches people what they're looking for, just get in front of that video, hook them, and then give them a little bit of value, just a couple of golden nuggets. Right? And so if you give them, the three main reasons that they're not losing weight right now, the three main things that they need to do, your new way of getting leads and growing a business, right? Whatever it happens to be that your mechanism is, giving them a little bit of value, because now they're seeing you as an expert. They're like, wow, this is better than the video I was going to watch already. I need to know more. Then by the time you get into the third component, right? So that's hook, educate. The third component is the call to action, getting them off the video into the rest of your funnel, which is typically going to be a webinar or a VSL, right? Getting them off onto that. They're going to be much more likely to not only sign up, but actually view the webinar when you have that educate section, because they're seeing you as an expert. Now they're hooked a little bit. You've given them a little bit of golden nuggets, a little bit of value. You give them a handful on the webinar. And then obviously you're either selling the pot of gold, or, you know, you have a phone call that will then sell it as well. So that's really what we found.
So just to recap the three elements. So first, actually, let's go back to creative, right?
Yeah.
You said natural is best. So like not really super complex production, just on your iPhone, a gimbal, or I'm sure a tripod works just as well too, right?
Exactly.
And I'm sure audio is probably, this is one of the things that Justin said, audio is probably like the most important. Like you want clear audio. So natural recording is best. And then the components of your ad is broken down into three parts: hook to capture the attention, educate and give a couple of golden nuggets, and then your call to action, pushing them to whatever the next step is, a VSL, webinar, mini webinar, you name it. So talk about, so out of curiosity, right? So before I get into like the weeds, like, because I've done a handful of ads, how many times does it take usually to create an ad that finally like clicks? Like, how many versions do we have to create on average? Like, you're a pro, I'm sure it takes you far fewer times to create an ad than let's say a coaching student of yours or a new client, right? So somebody who's doing it on their own, like, how many versions should they bank on before they say, screw it, I'm throwing in the towel? Like, what would you say there?
Yeah, and so that's actually a really great question. And that's why, you know, we have a program, and what we found works best is essentially mapping out more of a customer avatar. I know obviously you're familiar with that, Joel, right? Basically mapping out where your customer is, and then creating a script that hits all of these points. But what we do, you know, in our process, because this is one of those points that people, you know, if they don't do it the right way, or if they do it too quickly, or if they actually, on the other side, if they overthink it, right, you could run into some problems. And so, you know, part of our process is we actually have an in-house copywriter that works with our students and goes through and helps them write their script with them on a call, right? And so essentially taking their knowledge of, you know, the market, right, what they're, and essentially, like, you know, even sending over like the webinar and basically taking a look at, you know, where they're at, and then combining that with, you know, somebody who's written the, you know, hundreds of these video ads, right, together on a call to write out that hook, educate, call to action. But the advice I can give generally, and this is what we do as well, is one of the most important things to split test is the hook. And so a lot of people have the tendency to want to record the whole thing all at once, you know, hook, educate, call to action. But we try and break that mold and say, hey, let's do this. Let's record 5 different hooks, right? And have them test a variety of different hooks. So let's do like 5 different hooks, you know, so one could be, you know, let's just say here, you know, well, give me examples, right? So, but basically one could be about how to lose weight. One could be, you know, how to get fit, right? They're all for kind of the same thing, right? You know, how would you like to lose weight without having to go on an incredibly strict diet where you have to measure every single thing that you eat? You know, it could be a little bit different than, you know, what if you could lose weight by measuring, by monitoring what you eat instead of having to go in the gym every day, right? But you could be selling the same thing. So you have 2 different things. And so you could basically have 5 different hooks that you record: hook 1, hook 2, hook 3, hook 4, hook 5, and then separately record all of your educate and all of your call to action. And then that way you essentially have 5 videos that you can test. Well, it feels like you only recorded 1.5. And then you just slot in that hook 1 and then the rest of everything, you know, hook 2 and the rest of everything. You have your editor do that. You can even easily do that just, you know, with Premiere or whatever. But that's what we recommend for our clients. Obviously with us, we have a copywriter. So we try and, you know, make it as the best as possible right off the bat. And honestly, our hit rate in terms of people that are able to nail the video ad that they're going to be using going forward, I would say it's between 80 and 90%. It's probably closer to 90% in terms of ones that actually get at least one of those variations to be their main ad right off the bat.
So how much do you test for those? So like you've got 5 hooks, 5 contents, you know, 5 different calls to action. Maybe you don't have 5 for each.
Yeah, so it'd be more probably like 5, and then probably like 2, and call to action. Usually, you don't have to do it many different ways.
But you said hook is most important. That's why you want to test the most, right?
Yes, you want to test a lot of those. Yep.
Cool. So what's going to be the indicator that tells you I've got a winning hook versus I've got a dud?
Yep. So what I look at is I like to look at lead cost more so, because the thing is, like, if you're too early, right, and you just look at clicks and click-through rates, that might not give you the full picture, right? Because this one hook might get a lot of clicks, but maybe it's not captivating enough to get more leads, right? And then on the backside, if you're just looking at sales or applications, it's so far down the pipeline that it's hard to accurately measure because there's a margin of error there. And so I like to look at it as cost per lead and your actual conversion percentage, right? Your conversion rate, which video is performing better than the others, and slowly turning off the least performing videos until you have the best performer. And then once you have the couple best performers, then you want to look at your KPIs and say, okay, is this good enough for what I want to scale, or do I want to go back to the drawing board and do another set of videos?
Cool. Awesome. Mm-hmm. So, so you're looking at lead cost, and what are you shooting for target KPIs for lead cost? Like for a regular webinar registration, I know it's probably going to vary market to market, but like, hey, if I'm at $10 or above, then I know I need to look at revising something, or maybe that's $20. I'm not sure. Like, do you have rough guidelines for what you advise?
Yeah. So typically what we're looking to do is get below $10. But again, it does depend on the market, right? And so it's one of those things where we have people in some markets, like actually it was very funny. We've had a couple of dating coaches and their lead cost is like $2 a lead. Like, it's a very different market than, somebody who's in fitness where you can pretty, you can usually expect to get that sub $10, maybe like $5, $6, $7. But then in the online marketing, kind of internet marketing is a little, in general, right? You're trying to reach somebody who's actually in business. You might be close to the 10 or, not 8, 9, 10, sometimes even higher than that, depending on how specific you want to go. We're actually going to talk about something that I really love in a second when we get into targeting, which is income bracket targeting. It's very different on YouTube than Facebook. People are used to on Facebook, zip code income targeting, which isn't that good, right? Because it's not actually based on the individual. Whereas on Google, it's more based on the individual, based on what Google knows about the person. The thing about Google has Google Analytics, all the websites, or like half the websites you've been to, Google Analytics is installed on. Then you have all of your Google search history. You have all of your YouTube history and a lot of different factors. They can really build a complete profile on where you're at. And so one of the big things that we do with high ticket businesses is we target higher income brackets, which typically what we've seen is the lead cost will go up slightly. So maybe now you might be paying like $12 or you might be paying even $15 or whatever it is. But on the back end, your application costs, not only are the apps higher quality, we've actually found the app cost goes down if your webinar is done right, because a lot of good webinars, and I know you preach this, right, is designed to weed out people who are a bad fit from filling out an application, right? And so what you find is if you're only feeding it with the highest quality people, your app percentage and your cost per app, your app cost per app goes down, your app percentage goes up. And so that's what we found. But sometimes the lead cost does go up a little bit because of it, because you're targeting a smaller demographic. So again, leads is very variable, but it is a great indicator of apples to apples, right? So you can say, hey, this video is at this lead cost that is, $5 less than this other one. I mean, that's an extreme example, but obviously you're going to want to turn the one that's more expensive off and keep the one that is producing more leads, especially if it's flowing through into applications.
Cool.
Or sales.
Yeah, it makes total sense. It makes total sense. And that's, I think most people who are listening will agree with that. Okay. So obviously we're looking at lead cost. So when you do start to look at, click-through rate and view-through rate, like what are those indicators telling you? Like, what are you looking for in terms of those KPIs?
Yeah. Absolutely. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're also differentiating, right, the view to click, and sometimes Google will just give you the impression to click. I look more at view to click because view is what you pay for, and then obviously from there you see the click-through rate. So so there's not a major, I'm more looking at conversion percentages and the conversion KPIs, but obviously with click-through rate, if you look at all through, including impressions, which is actually the number that Google will give you, you always want to be higher than 1%. But your actual percentage on what you're paying for, which is views, is going to be more like 4 or 5% because you're only paying for views over 30 seconds, right? So if you actually calculate, because typically what we've found is either 1 in 5 or to 1 in 10 impressions will become a view. And the views are what you pay for. That's more than 30 seconds. We're kind of getting into the weeds here. So what you want to do is you basically can calculate two numbers, the click-through rate from impressions, but that number is very interesting. It's what Google gives you because it's different because you're not actually paying per impression, you're paying per view. And so you kind of have to calculate yourself the per view click-through rate.
Got it. Cool.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yep.
And so you can set up like a daily leading metrics kind of sheet, which I'm sure is something, you know, a lot of people, if you're listening to this podcast right now, you probably have some variation of that. And then that's going to actually give you your real click-through rate as opposed to just impression-based.
Where I had Brian Kurtz on the podcast on experts on my other podcast a handful of months ago, and he was talking about the importance of the offer versus the targeting versus the copy, right? So if we were to kind of translate that into YouTube ads, where do you weigh the importance? Like, where does targeting come into play? Like, how much does that weigh versus your creative versus your offer? Like, what would you give those percentages? Like, what would you say is most important of those three?
So I think they all need to be congruent. What I would say for high ticket businesses is the first thing that people get wrong is the creative, but it's not the biggest thing because it's easier to know your creative's wrong than your targeting. And this is why I'm a little careful when I answer questions like lead costs, because we've made a decision in what we do. And we inform our students, some go one direction, some go another direction. But there is a really, really good correlation between the actual amount of sales you get and the quality of people that you get on the phone if you're doing a phone ticket business, and then obviously number of sales if you're doing a course-based business, right? If you're reaching people that have a higher income bracket and are more specifically in your target market, because yes, there's a lot of people that can sign up for leads, and you could go out and you could get sub $5 leads, but are they going to be the best ones? And I think one of the biggest things in our industry is people, think a lead is a lead if they're not thinking about it too much. You don't want to think about it like that. So for instance, there's a very big difference behind somebody who is in like a top 30% income bracket, which is one of the big things that we do, top 30% combined with now they're watching a video, and then you also have some layering on top of it. So this might actually be a good segue. If you want, I can kind of talk about, I know you've seen some of this, Joel, but I can talk about the 3D YouTube ads and how that's different too from what a lot of people
I would love to transition there 100%.
Absolutely. So this is exactly what we're talking about. And so before I get into what the 3D YouTube ads is, we got to talk about how most people are advertising, both on Facebook and also people who just start out YouTube for the first time. So on Facebook, a lot of people, and actually for the most part, this is what you're doing, is you're targeting in two dimensions. You have demographics, right? So that basically defines, you can do household income, but it's more by zip code. So it's not as powerful as Google, but you basically have obviously where people are, kind of basic information about them, their age, etc. And then you're combining that with affinities and interests, things that they like and things that represent who they are, even behaviors. And obviously there's some really cool stuff that you can do on Facebook. Again, don't get me wrong, I'm not completely bashing Facebook, but it's really two dimensions, and so essentially the algorithm has to fill in, a third dimension of like when it shows up, because there's nothing, people are just scrolling on a news feed, right? So it's more about who you are and then your overall demographics, right? So what you like, who you are you a business owner, and your demographics. On YouTube, people go a different direction when most people start doing YouTube, right? And unfortunately, there's a lot of people, because there's not as many people teaching YouTube right out there. There's a lot of misinformation about this, where people will go off and they'll do two different dimensions. They'll do demographics, right? The same thing. And a lot of times people don't even go into household incomes. They don't know how powerful that is. We'll talk about that in a second. But they do demographics, and then they combine that with intent, so specific videos. One thing I see very commonly is they'll just do placement ads, right? So they'll just select a bunch of different videos. The problem with that is you constantly have to refresh that list because videos only have such a long life. And so you might start to realize, oh, okay, so now actually I need to do keywords or I need to do topics, so a collection of videos.
Yep.
But the problem now exists that you're reaching people who have intent and they're watching a specific thing, but you don't know who they are, what they're about. Are they actually, a business owner who's actually looking to do this? Are they actually somebody who is, in the market for a program or course or advice? And so you only have two dimensions of it. What we do is we go in and we say, hey, there's actually a way with YouTube, which is very unique. And this is honestly, because we've helped our clients generate over 8 figures in high ticket sales with YouTube ads, right? High ticket and course sales, that is to say. So webinar based sales, what we found is the key to that is our 3D YouTube ad strategy. So demographics at the top, right? So that's basically going in specifically for high ticket. We like to target top 30%, right? But obviously it can vary. Some people target a little even more exclusive than that. Some people just do top 50, but you target higher income brackets, demographics. Then what you're doing is you're obviously targeting videos, so collections of videos. That's keywords, topics. These are collections of videos that aren't going to be exhausted like placements, that are going to exist and they're specific to your market. So a keyword could be how to get more leads, how to lose weight, right? There's going to be videos on that topic, on that keyword. But then you have to layer it. The third dimension that we add, this is what makes us unique, right? Is you add affinity targeting, and there's a few different ways, affinity targeting on top of this so that we can pinpoint who this person is, not just what they're watching now, but who this person is as a business owner, as somebody who's looking to invest in themselves, right? And so a lot of people don't know that you can do this on YouTube. You can not only build out custom affinities where you put in keywords that describe somebody, and that's basically based on their browsing habits on Google, combined with what they're watching now. But you can even target people based on past Google searches. It's called custom intent. Incredibly powerful. One of the most scalable, most powerful types of targeting you can do, because now, not only, so for Joel, for you, for instance, somebody's looking up how to build a webinar, right? Now you can also combine that with, in the past, they've searched up, whether, webinar, how to build a webinar, maybe they've searched up webinar jam, ever webinar. They might've searched for, high ticket, like how to build a high ticket business, how to make an offer. They might've even searched for a competitor, which is something you can do, right? So Google search terms, right? You combine all of those plus the video that they're watching right now, you're like, and the fact that they're in the top 30 income bracket, you're creating a triangle. You're pinpointing, this is somebody who not only is watching a video right now on how to build a webinar, are in the income bracket that they can afford your program, but they're also somebody who in the past has searched related things, or you can create an affinity based on high ticket or course-based business, like online course, where you're basically figuring out who they are, what they're watching, and then also that they can afford your program. That's how you create a triangle. You can pinpoint the exact perfect person.
So what are the labels of the three Ds? So we've got affinity targeting. Let's just give a quick recap here. Yep.
Yeah. So basically you have demographics, intent, and affinity, and that's what we do for the 3 dimensions. But inside each of those, and specifically inside the affinity, there's a variety of different audiences that you can create that you're layering with the videos. There's even a third one we didn't even talk about, right? So we talked about the Google intent. So that's, people who are searching things on Google. We talked about what's called a custom affinity, which is you can put in a selection of keywords and Google will create an affinity based on people's browsing history. Google also has some preset affinities as well, which sometimes are good, sometimes are less good. It just depends on the one that you find. But then there's also another one called a URL affinity. This is incredibly powerful. This is where you can literally put in the URLs of your competitors' websites that other people are visiting. So it doesn't even have to be direct competitors. Joel, for you, you could put in high ticket based websites that talk about how to build, like, that where they do a little bit of webinar training, but obviously what you do can take it to the next level.
Like ClickFunnels, like clickfunnels.com or something.
You could put in clickfunnels.com, and so you put these in, and what it'll do is it'll find people who have either gone to that site before or who have gone to similar sites. Now, it's one of those things where The people though that it finds is really targeted, and a large percentage of those have been to that site. And I've talked with like big, big people who are running big, media stuff. Like there's a huge mattress company. I was at a mastermind. I was talking with one of the heads of digital marketing for a large mattress company, and they heavily use this URL affinity targeting, and they target rival mattress websites.
Yeah.
Because they know that it might not all be people who have gone to that specific mattress website, but Google's really good at knowing they've either been to that site or they've been to other sites that are exactly like it. And you're targeting those people, and you're layering that, not just targeting those people on their own. You're layering that with a video that they're watching. So now they're watching a video about, how to build a webinar or, something along those lines. And they're also in a top income bracket that can afford high ticket. You'll probably end up paying a little bit more per lead using this strategy, but your leads are going to be infinitely higher quality than if you just target one or the other. And that's going to ultimately result in not only higher quality apps and more sales, but actually lower cost apps, but your lead cost might be slightly higher.
Yeah. Where do you recommend people start then? Like, cause it sounds like there's a million ways that you can target. Like the ways that I know are what you talked about before, like targeting competitors' videos, and like there's TubeSift, there's all sorts of softwares out there where you can scrape them and whatnot. And like, I remember when I was going through and I was trying to, like I had purchased a course on YouTube ads, like just a low level course to get started. And I'm like, God, there's so much, but it's just like Facebook, right? It's like, you walk into it for the first time, it's like this big black box. But where would you recommend that? What's like the 80-20? If somebody wants to get started, where is their highest likelihood for success with like the lowest barrier to entry?
Yeah, that's actually a really great question, because this is something, and I'm excited. I'll actually give kind of what I would recommend. But this is also something we map out for our clients as well, where we actually have a flow chart of here's exactly what to do step by step. Here's the exact formula that we've found to get started, regardless, depending on the budget that you're at. Here are the exact campaigns that you should set up. And we also take a very hands-on approach too. So we help our clients set up these campaigns, but we also make it very apparent, here is exactly what needs to be done. And so essentially what we found is you create obviously like 5 versions of that video. So the hook, educate, call to action. You want to make sure that you have that, streamlined. Like in our case, we have a copywriter that makes sure that it's going to be a good product that they can put to market. Then from there, what you want to do is you want to set up campaigns. Typically, I'm going to recommend more lead ads, although CPV, it does have a place and can be valuable in the early days to kind of train the Google tag and like what causes conversions. But you're going to create your campaigns and layer from the beginning. This is something that's kind of, I don't want to say controversial, but like I'm one of the few people that says to do this. But you can also look at the results that we've gotten for webinars, high ticket, right? It speaks for itself, because this is the way to go, right? A lot of, like some people will start kind of broad and then they'll layer. Like I recommend doing it from the beginning. That's what we have our clients do. You want to layer these 3 dimensions all at the beginning: the income bracket, the videos that they're watching, but not too specific. So if you try to layer from the beginning with placements, this is a mistake a lot of people make if they hear me but they don't do the program, is they think placements is the video. The problem is there's not enough views on those placements, right? You have to get a lot of placements or do more channel placements. It's better if you use keywords or topics, and then you layer that with with audiences. And so you want to build out several audiences, several keywords and topics layered together with income brackets, and you do that from the beginning. That's when you're going to be able to get really good results right off the bat. So for instance, we had a real estate investing coach, James, absolutely incredible, great guy. And he was kind of like a lot of our clients, right? He was kind of just playing around with Facebook, wasn't really working that much. It was okay. Comes on, we help him craft his video ad with our copywriter. We got all that stuff all set. His first week of running ads, which is about week 2 or 3 in the program's first week, it's 44 applications come in.
Wow.
You're only spending a few $100s a day. It was actually, I think it was like $250 a day at the beginning. And it's like 44 applications come in his first week. And the reason for that is we target all of this from day one. All of, the 3-dimensional approach from day one. And then that's what's going to make the applications come in.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you're saying create a campaign and layer from the beginning. So layer income bracket,
Yep.
layer it with videos that they're watching, not doing placement targeting, meaning not doing existing videos that they're watching.
For the most part. Placement's good, but it's the very much equivalent of low-hanging fruit. It's very hard to scale. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So you're saying use keywords or topics for targeting, not placements, correct?
Yes. In this strategy, yes.
Yep. And then layer that with audiences. So define audiences. So like I thought
that's
keywords
affinity.
and topics.
That's affinity.
Okay.
I use the word affinity because it better defines it. If you're talking, Google calls all of the affinities like audiences. I don't really like the word audiences as much because I don't think it describes it to people who are less familiar with the platform. So I say affinity, but Google calls them audiences. So you basically put in several of these audiences. So one of them is a custom affinity audience. You know, the full names for these, right? A custom affinity audience, you know, custom intent audience, you know, etc.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then you come up with 5 hooks, you know, 1 or 2 different types of content in your ad, and then usually 1 call to action. That's what you're going to run your test to, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I think, you know, the next thing to really talk about is, you know, when you're going into running, you know, your first YouTube ad, some of the biggest mistakes, some of the biggest misconceptions, I think that's a great way to kind of loop it back there, is honestly, you know, people go in and they try to create like a very short ad or something that doesn't appeal to experts. The fact that you are actually trying to get people on a webinar, right? Trying to get them to join your program, your course, whatever those next steps are. The big thing that you want to do is you want to actually put yourself across as an expert, but reach people who are looking for that. Because if you put yourself across as an expert and you reach kind of a, you know, a layperson who's not looking for that higher level strategy, you're going to get a lot of leads. And I think this is what I was leading into, right? You're going to get a lot of leads, but are those leads the highest quality ones that are going to actually go ahead and convert down the road? So you need to make sure, I mean, you asked the question before, right? What's the most important, the creative, the targeting, or the offer? You need all of these to be congruent together. You need a creative that's really going to speak to your expertise, get people to trust you, value you, and really want to learn more and go to those next steps. But at the same time, you need targeting, like we talked about the three dimensions of targeting, right? So you have the demographics, you have the intent, so the videos that they're watching. You also have the affinities, the audiences. You're layering all 3 of these together, and you're figuring out the exact right person that you're looking to reach with the right message. And then obviously on the back end, you need to have the right webinar, which obviously you help with, Joel, and the right offer. When all of these are together, that's when you're going to see the most results. And the problem that I see most people face is they don't think that critically about their marketing that way. They see it as traffic, right? As opposed to seeing it as the first step in a journey that your customers are taking. And so, for instance, with us, you know, on our webinars, actually to talk about numbers as well, you know, what we've seen is on our webinars, we get, and this is every webinar run every hour on the hour, between 50 and 60% show up rate on YouTube, which again, maybe back in the day, that was what you could expect on Facebook, but these days it's been going down and down. And obviously I know, Joel, I'm sure you have ways to kind of mitigate that on Facebook, but it's one of those things where on YouTube, what are they doing other than looking for video content on what you have to offer? And what's a webinar or VSL other than a longer form video?
Yep.
So you're meeting people on the medium that they're going at, right? You're giving them some value on the video to make sure that they're much more likely to show up, and then they're ready to watch and take action. And so that's what I found is being congruent each step of the way, instead of treating it like traffic, right? Treating it as actually the first step in a journey and trying to indoctrinate them and get them into your way of thinking on the ad itself instead of just later.
Makes total sense. What do you say in terms of length for your ad? I know you said, you know, longer is typically better, but there's got to be like that law of diminishing returns. Like how long is too long? How short is too short? Like what's your opinion there?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I would say in terms of length is I typically go for 2 to 5 minutes long, sometimes up to 6 minutes long. You want to have a hook that's probably going to be about 30 seconds. It might be a little bit longer than that if you add in a little bit more about yourself, right? You do more of an introduction. So 30 seconds to a minute. And then I like to put in 2 to 4 minutes of educate, right? This is where you're able to provide actual value and pinpoint some of the big things, especially if you have a webinar, right? Here are some of the big things you're going to cover on the webinar. You want to give a taste of each of these, because if you just say to sign up for the webinar just because of like the title, people are going to be like, okay, but what am I actually going to get? If you give them a taste of the things, you know, what you're all about and how you're different, that's what's going to get people much more likely to watch. That's to educate, like, you know, 2 to 4 minutes. And then on the back end, you probably want to have, you know, about 30 seconds or so of a call to action, mentioning, you know, where to click, exactly what they're going to see. So you'll get to a page that looks like this, and then you actually put the screen up on the screen. And all you have to do is click the big button, right? You know, find a date and time that works for you to register for the webinar. When you're familiarizing people with what the next steps are on the ad, makes it much more likely for them to complete the steps, because they're like, oh, this is familiar. I've seen it before. I know exactly what to do.
Cool. All right. So 2 to 6 minutes ballpark
Exactly.
is what we should be shooting for. How long are your hooks normally? I know you're shooting like 5 of them, 4 to 5 versions.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm sure the content's probably the longest piece. You said the call to action was around 30 seconds, right?
Yeah, around 30. And the hook would also be around 30 seconds. It could be a little bit longer. It could be about a minute if you introduce yourself a little bit more, like after the hook, before you dive into the education section. But typically I would say about 30 seconds is going to be good for the hook, because remember the hook, and that's both lines of the hook. So I actually like to do, this is getting granular, but I'm excited to kind of share some extra value with you guys. So I don't think I've even explained this yet outside of our clients. So this is an exclusive right here. But typically you're going to want to have two main sentences included in your hook. One is what's actually going to capture their attention. And then the second is actually seeding what you're going to show them on the ad, so that they're much more likely to watch and pay attention and want to watch. So one is basically, you know, to capture their attention, and the next is to actually entice them to continue watching. So for instance, for us, and I'm just going to use mine because I have it ingrained in my head. So like, you know, one of our hooks, and we have several, right, is, you know, what if you could ethically hijack your competitors' traffic and send it directly into your own funnel? And then, and that's the hook, right? So, you know, it's kind of like a question mark. I didn't even mention YouTube at the beginning, right? So, you know, ethically hijack your competitors' traffic, send it to your own funnel. And then in this video, I'm going to show you how you can do exactly that using targeted YouTube video ads, just like the one you're watching right now, basically putting your video ad in front of your competitors so you can siphon all of that traffic for yourself. So let's hop over to my computer screen. We'll show you exactly how this works. And so you'll see how I have two components to the hook. And that's why, you know, one of the reasons, because not just everybody can come up with, you possibly can work with a copywriter. Obviously, I mean, Joel, you do a lot of copy anyways. You probably figure, you know, a lot of this stuff out. But the average business owner, you need to work with somebody who knows how to do this. That's why we have our copywriter on our team, right? To help you make sure that this happens, because you want to not only hook people in, right? So another example of another hook is, you know, YouTube ads beat Facebook ads every time. In this video, and then ... right? So in this video usually doesn't change. There's maybe a couple variations, but it's basically the hook that captures their attention, that gets them to be like, wait, what's going on here? You know, I'm actually going to pay attention to this ad. And then you want to entice them to why they should watch the rest of it. Because if you just say, you know, YouTube ads, you know, beat Facebook ads every time. All right, let's go over to my computer screen. People get confused, right? It's like, in this video, I'm going to show you, you know, exactly how we use targeted YouTube video ads, you know, ...
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so I would say like hooks are the most important thing that anybody can have in their entire business, like for marketing, because it is everything. Like, it's what's going to attract the right and the wrong people into your funnel. So getting the right hook is extremely important. And that's the same with all advertising with Facebook. It's like, you want to make sure you're getting the right people to raise their hand, because you can throw all sorts of clickbait out there, but like, not all clicks are created equal. And I think I'm echoing kind of like what you're saying here, but
exactly.
Oh, that's fantastic. So it's almost like a main hook and a sub hook that you're talking about, the two hooks inside of your introduction, right?
Yeah.
So I've got a question for you. Have you ever seen VSL style ads where it's like just the black text and the white background, right? Where it's just like normal VSL style, only it's used as the ad. Have you ever had success with those?
So I've seen it. I've also tried it, because I've tried a lot of things, obviously on YouTube. What I've found is it can produce applications, But part of it is not only is it, do you not get the leads from it, right? So you don't have the email leads that you can follow up with, right? But the other thing too is, especially since the way, YouTube works, unless you hide like towards the end what the actual link is and you have something else at the beginning, the link's there the whole time. So most people won't watch the whole thing, right? So they'll have a smaller watch time and then they'll click off and they'll either bounce from your application page or your purchase page, or what they'll do is they'll fill it out if it's an application page, and then you have a really low quality application because they have no idea what's going on. Or even if they are the perfect person, they're not indoctrinated enough to get on that call, right? Yeah. It's the same reason you wouldn't want to run directly just to book a call, because you're not going to get people who understand what you're doing. Even if they're the right person, it's way too early in the process. And so, those are kind of the big reasons. What I would say though is for retargeting, it can work well in certain cases, running like even a replay as a retargeting ad. And actually,
well, I guess I want to make sure my question was clear, because I'm not necessarily saying like, hey, run the direct, like run the webinar or the mini webinar as the ad, but like instead of standing in front of, like if I were to take the same copy that you had in your ad and just use that as a VSL style, like, where now it's just like, hey, rather than the reason why I'm coming at this is because if it's easier for me to record just a voiceover and then I can get that produced very, very easily versus hiring a video editor or chopping it up or whatever. So I didn't know if you had seen, like if it's the exact same content, but it's just delivered on a white background with black text, kind of like slide by slide. I didn't know if you had run that before.
So I have good news and bad news. And what I'll say though, I'll say not necessarily bad, but like that does not convert as well. We've tried it. We don't really recommend any of our clients do that. Honestly, like it's one of those things, obviously you only want to enroll people who are a good fit. Like if people say for sure they're not going to be on video, there's actually ways that you can, we've had several people hire spokespeople. It's actually kind of funny. Some have hired the same spokespeople, which is hilarious. But so we have a solution for people that don't want to be on camera. But if you're an expert-based business, it should be you. But just doing the voiceover does not work as well because people want to connect with a person. They want to connect with a face. But the good news is you could literally end this call and record even with that background, even recording on your computer. That doesn't make a huge difference. Right? Yep. It's really about you being there, and natural works really well. So a great example of that is, one of our clients, I absolutely, love this guy. This was actually a while ago now. But he basically created a ad for his Amazon course. So he's teaching people how to sell on Amazon, specifically how to take name brand products and sell them on Amazon. Incredible course, really great guy. And he thought he had to hire a big production studio. Back when we originally worked with it, we were like, no, just film the ad just, on your iPhone. And so he thought it was going to be a test ad at the time. So he just had his iPhone, he got the gimbal that we told him to get, walking down the beach. And actually he didn't even do the audio thing. So it was a little windy and stuff. He just records the ad, a couple takes of the ad, a couple different hooks, get those up there. And he is convinced he's going to need to change that ad. And at that point, he was at that, I think, 20, 25K per month off of Facebook, and he had a little bit of an organic following. Running his ad on YouTube, getting his ads up and running on YouTube. The first month, over $122,000 in sales.
Wow. Was this a direct to sale webinar, or was it?
So this was, so originally it was, for that first month, it was $19.97. It was then dropped to $9.97 for mass market. To get as many clients as possible and sell things on the back end, stuff like that. But at the time it was $19.97. And actually it was interesting. We were working with like a marketing company with them as well. The metrics that we ran for that first month was a 17x ROAS, which is just absolutely ludicrous. It was crazy. And the first, I think it was 98 days, we had over $540,000 in revenue off of $44,000 ad spend, which is just, insane and incredible. And that was literally off of an ad walking down a beach. I think it was California, walking down a beach, in California, just recording on your iPhone. And it just goes to show you, right? It's literally, you could take a video that's natural, and that's what's going to resonate with people because that's what they're used to watching, right? We're accustomed to tuning out content that's overly produced and ads. Think about it. We're bombarded with ads all the time, and we tune out some of the very well-produced ones because our brain says it's an ad.
Yep.
Versus if you're watching a video on YouTube to learn how to build a webinar, then Joel, you pop up and you're being natural. You could even literally have this, the background that you have right now is great, to be honest. Like, you know, you just hop in and you start talking about it. And also, I'm not on camera the whole 6 minutes either. I do like a 30-second hook on camera and then the call to action on camera. But all of my educate is showing my screen, showing how a YouTube ad works and our process behind it. You could probably do the exact same thing. And so you would just need to record the hook and the call to action live, and then the educate can be kind of more VSL style.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
dude, we covered so much in this call.
Yeah.
I mean, got me excited about YouTube again, and I need to. It's funny because like I got everything set up. I had to call Google AdWords, which, by the way, here's a hidden benefit that nobody talks about. Google AdWords support is freaking phenomenal. They call me, like I had a question because I was like, it's difficult to get set up. You have to use like 4 different products of Google to get it set up, like Tag Manager, Google Analytics, plus AdWords. And so I'm a tech guy too, and I screwed it up. But anyway, I put in a support ticket, and they're like, hey, you want to hop on the phone? I'm like, yes. And so like you can't get anybody on the phone at Facebook. Anyway, so I had a call. We did a screen share. The guy installed it for me. I'm like, I can't. I hadn't even spent a penny yet on the YouTube ads. But they're like, yeah, you know, we're here to help. Here's my direct line. The guy left me his phone number to call him back. I'm like, this is amazing. Like, I need to spend more money. But it's kind of a tale of 2 stories. Like, number one, when you have a product so good like Facebook ads and you don't need phone support and you're a multi-billion-dollar company, like there's also something to be said there. But like, you know, they sell something more addictive than crack to marketers. But then, you know, you've got AdWords and they're just like, yeah, we'll give you phone support. Like, here's my direct line. Call me anytime. Like, I need to just give them business just because of that.
And I have so many stories like that. It's crazy. And then if you have anything with like an ad that doesn't immediately get approved, they can manually review it. Like, I remember like there was an ad that we had, like actually very prominent now, you know, because you become, you know, very big, but you know, fitness guy, and we were getting his ads approved on YouTube, and he had like a lot of claims. And by the way, you could say a lot of things on a YouTube ad. We have people who are like, how would you like to make $9.97 every day? You know, like, or like, you know, 97 commissions, like $1,000 every day. Like, it's crazy. I don't recommend that, by the way. You know, I take more of a conservative approach, but it's crazy the stuff that gets approved. You couldn't touch it with like a 10-foot pole, like, you know, on Facebook. But, you know, he had a lot of claims, and so it didn't immediately get approved. And we call up Google support, and obviously they answer right away. And they're like, oh, you know, let me watch the video and let you know. And they watch the video and they're like, oh yeah, okay, so all you need to do is just add a 5-second disclaimer. We're like, okay, so how do, you know, does it matter like how visible it is, how long? He's like, oh, just 5 seconds, doesn't matter how big, really small, just a small disclaimer. I just need to check a box and then we can get these manually approved. But here's what I'm gonna want to do. And he did the same thing. I'm gonna give you my callback number. I'm gonna give you, you know, I'm gonna give you my email. And as soon as you have this, I'll manually review the ad and approve the ad right away. And so we make a couple of these edits, call him back, and literally, you know, within like an hour later, whenever we called them back, he manually approved the ad on the phone, and without really having to do any changes other than a small disclaimer at the bottom, which, by the way, for the most part, that's not needed, but there was a lot of claims in this video. So, but, and then what happened was, the guy, it was so funny. I still remember this. Like, the guy's like, are you, and this was about the other person, the fitness guy. Are you the guy in the video? And he's like, yeah. And the guy on the other line is like, dude, you're looking great. It was hilarious. He's awesome. Like, keep working out. I'm like, you don't get that. I mean, just imagine, like, right? Like, Facebook does not do that. So the support on Google is definitely much better. It is a big benefit. And that's, you know, I have the list of why, you know, all the reasons YouTube's better than Facebook. One of them is consistency, and built into that is, you know, if you don't have to worry about getting shut down all the time, you know, you can really build a lot more consistency into your marketing and really have that a platform that you can count on instead of waking up to that dreaded email, you know, that things have been shut down.
Yep. Well, dude, this has been a phenomenal conversation. I mean, we talked about so much. We talked about ad creative, you know, split testing your hooks and your content, your calls to action, Winning indicator, we're shooting for $10 per lead or below for webinar ads. And obviously that's going to vary by market, but that's a kind of rough rule of thumb. Your view to click ratio is, we want to shoot for 4 to 5%. And that's views are what you're paying for. And if we're doing impression to click, we're shooting for anything over than 1%, right? Components of your ad, we've got, the hook to capture the attention, then educate, give a couple of golden nuggets, then your call to actions. We already talked about that. Your 3 Ds of targeting, which is demographic, intent, and infinity. And that's really kind of like the secret sauce. And I like the URL affinity. That's gold. I didn't even know about that. How many people know about URL affinity?
So not that many people know about it. And when we talk about it, I'm sure we'll talk about kind of links and stuff, but we have our YouTube Ads for Entrepreneurs Facebook group. And that is literally the most requested training. We have over 1,000 comments. We do just comment, we'll get it to you. And I call it our industry secret training because it really is. It's the majority of people, like 99% of people don't know about it. And the 1% that do are keeping it very secret because it literally is some of the best targeting that you can do. Like I said, like when I was talking the mattress, they're talking, at least hundreds of thousands. I mean, they're talking more millions, obviously, in overall spend, but at least hundreds of thousands just on this type of targeting, which is crazy. Yeah.
Well, dude, drop some links, man. Like, where can people reach out to you? Where can they get help? Where can they find you?
Absolutely. So we do have a Facebook group, YouTube Ads for Entrepreneurs. So that's kind of just in general where you can see posts. But obviously the best thing to do if you're ready and you want help with YouTube ads, because what we have is a hands-on done with you process, right? Obviously there's a lot of courses out there, but the problem with that is nobody's helping you implement those courses. And on the other side, you have agencies. Oftentimes it's not the agency owner, it's an intern or a low-level person running the ads, but then you're not learning anything. It's a black box. You're paying them, retainer fees forever. You're not actually learning how it works. And so we have a done with you process where we work together on your YouTube ads. We've got a copywriter that helps you with the script. We're diving into your ad accounts hands-on to make sure you're targeting the right things and helping you optimize and scale learning while helping you hands-on. And so if you think that sounds like something that you want, especially the fact that we specialize in working with high ticket and webinars, you can go to AdOutreach, ADOUTREACH.com/apply. That's adoutreach.com/apply. And you can schedule a time to speak with our team. But one final thing I'll give you guys is we also have a free gift. Every podcast I hop on, I give out a gift. And this is at adoutreach.com/gift. You can go ahead and go there, and we have links not just to our webinar, but I actually created a training that I don't always give away, YouTube ads for high ticket sales. So it's very relevant for this podcast. It also applies to courses as well, high ticket sales. And you can watch that training. It's right there on that link as well. So it's adoutreach.com/gift. We also have a link to our Facebook group and the book apply page as well on that page.
Awesome. That's adoutreach.com/gift. We'll make sure we drop that in the show notes as well. Dude, it's been a great conversation. I'm glad we got to connect. I'm glad you shared your wisdom. Every time I talk about YouTube ads, I'm like, I got to do it. I promise I'm going back in it. I did jump into it last time and it took me a while to record the videos and they didn't work. So I'm like, I'll get back to it. But I know the content I want to record for my videos too. It's just, I gotta get up and do it. I need to re-record my webinar too. So it's just like, I got a lot of video production that I need to do. So.
Yeah.
Aleric, man, it's been a pleasure. If you're listening right now, please reach out to Aleric. Let him know you heard him on the Sold with Webinars podcast. Let him know you appreciate all the golden nuggets, and we will see you on the next episode. Take care.